reason that you are all here today is to learn more about opportunities in the trades that are not necessarily the conventional trades. When many of us think about construction, we think about a hard hat, and we think about a tool belt, and we're thinking about traditional ways of building things. But we don't ordinarily think about those elements that went into that delivery of that project. And I'm so pleased that we have such a wonderful contributing body that's going to be giving you some information on the construction careers and development careers that are out there today, not only here locally. And those of you that aren't familiar with our local construction sector, just look around and you'll see more cranes in this sector than you'll see all across the country. And one of the reasons is the market is ripe. And so what inspired us to create this event was we were watching a lot of these cranes, and obviously when the cranes are going around, there's a project going around. We were seeing these projects being delivered, but we didn't see the representation that we felt needed to be on these projects. When you have projects that are going through your community, it's really important that you're a part of them, not only through your pocketbook and your property taxes, but you're able to put your youth and your families and your mothers and fathers and brothers and aunts and uncles, you're able to put your community to work. And we found that a lot of our community are not necessarily aware of these non-traditional opportunities. And so today, we are proud to give you what we're calling the Construction and Development Careers Summit. With me today, I have Brian Lloyd with Beacon Development, who will be speaking about his experience and the opportunities in his sector, which is huge. And the sector that he's going to be talking about is affordable housing. And those of you that know, Washington and especially the city of Seattle is increasing its density. And what that means is you're seeing fewer houses and more buildings. And so those present opportunities for construction and housing. We prefer to be a part of the whole supply chain. Now today our agenda is as follows. We're going to go through introductions, and I've set up a kind of a script for you because some of you are actually looking for jobs. Some of you are looking for that polish that's going to be the difference from you getting one of these jobs and one of you getting these jobs. And so we want to talk with you, give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to us. And if we know of some opportunities, of course, we'd like to be able to share your information to the resources that we have. So those of you who are looking for a job, make sure when you get this opportunity to present yourself, you take your time. And if you don't want to be the first, you don't have to. I'll set up the script so you can kind of work your way through it. We're going to go through objectives of today's class. We're going to lead with this lovely gentleman sitting in front of me. Not only is he responsible for this building that we're in right now, he was a part of that development team and has been a great ally to El Centro de la Raza, and we are so grateful to have someone like him volunteering his time and energy. And when you see his presentation, you'll see he's put a lot of energy into this. And I just found out that he's not only a VIP in the organization, but I found out that he's a little more than that, and I'll let him share what his role is with Beacon Development. So we have a VIP here. I didn't have enough money for the red carpet, but I got good food coming, so hopefully y'all be patient with me. We're also going to be talking about architectural and engineering careers. And many of you think, well, in order to be an architect or an engineer, I have to go to college and I have to get my degree. Well, sometimes there's supporting activities. And sometimes there's activities like in three-dimensional drawing that doesn't even require a degree. And some of these guys are getting paid more than the folks with degrees. And you can come down to Hoffman's offices and see their BIM department, and that's the fanciest department that they have. So a lot of times they're using that technology to help sell their capabilities, and it helps land work. And they're doing $2 billion a year. And Andrew Powell is on his way. He has a parent-teacher conference, another person who's volunteering his time to be here for you. So he'll be on his way, and he'll give some opportunities that are happening with Hoffman Construction as well as Hoffman Structures. And so we'll talk about those trade careers within those general contractors. We want to leave some time for questions, and then we're going to talk about next steps. The Entrepreneurial Institute of Washington is celebrating its 5th year anniversary. We have been working with small businesses across the state of Washington for this time. And since this time, we've been very successful in matching them, our small businesses, with large firms and large public agencies. So much that we're going to keep it quiet until we have our award ceremony. We've had a wonderful following through our YouTube Contractor University station, and through that we have found that not only are we providing resources for those general contractors and subcontractors, we're also providing it to some of you who would like to work with some of these firms. And so what we found is that we have to combine workforce development and business development, meaning we want to help those small businesses grow, but if they don't have people like you in them, they're not destined for the kind of greatness that we think they're capable of. So we want to make sure we're empowering you so you can go empower them. So that's how our model is developed. If you go to YouTube today, you will find that we have multiple videos that are available to you, from estimating to blueprint reading to job order contracting. I talked about building information modeling, a number of classes that are all free to you. Again, YouTube, EIW, Contractor University. This is our opportunity for you to be able to introduce yourself. You're going to tell us what your name is. If you currently have a position, describe what your goal position would be. Feel free to elaborate with us so we have a good idea. And then tell us what your objectives of today are.
My name is Katina. I'm currently a student taking computer support technology classes. And I basically came to get more information about what's going on. Being in IT, I really didn't think of the construction area as being a place to find a job. So I started this path a couple years ago, and I'm going to continue in IT somewhere. And so I basically came to get more information. So any help and information that I can get would be great.
My name is Marlena. Short background, my family has been in construction at all levels for many, many, many years. So I do have some familiarity with the construction industry, and I know that it's very much on the move. And I know that there's a lot of opportunities. So basically, my objective is to find out what the opportunities are and to just to kind of put my nail down and claim my stake of where I feel like I'm qualified, which I know I'll find out more as we go along. So thank you for the opportunity.
My name is Vincent, and currently I work for a company called Icicle Seafoods in a support role. My work experience goes back in banking, credit unions. But of course, the economic downturn kind of hurt a lot of people. And I worked temp work for a number of years because I think as we start getting older, sometimes employers are not looking for some of the older folks. But Icicles, they've been good to me. And so I actually went to school for business administration. I have a master's degree. And so coming today is not only for myself, but I have grown children that are looking for opportunities, and I love to work with youth. I want to find out some information on how we can help our youth get empowered to make their futures a little bit brighter. So I think that this is really good.
Maury Scott, just here for the knowledge. Hate public speaking, so I'm gonna pass the mic.
Hi, my name is Tanya. Same as you. I've been a licensed cosmetologist for 25 years, and also I've been in customer service, working at Barrier Motors, Shuttle Express, working with the public. I'm here because my friend here was telling me, oh, you should come. And I'm open to new experiences, so just to find out the knowledge and, see what's going on.
My name is Tony. Just in case my boss sees this, I'm just here. I'm secure in my job. I have a very good job. I'm a truck driver, so I just came for the information.
My name is Jerry Lawson, and I'm in the healthcare industry as a support specialist, and I'm just here for the information.
Hi, my name is Yolanda Brooks. I am the community engagement person for the Washington State Department of Transportation. A little bit of my background is I started off working 911. I did that for 8 years. Then I worked for the Pierce County Planning Department for 8 years. I kind of change things every 8 years. And then I started working for the Department of Labor and Industries. I was a claims adjudicator, and then I started reviewing public works, the notice of completions for public works projects for retainage release. And then I was hired by the Washington State Department of Transportation as their community engagement person, which is my passion. So I went through a lot of different things before I actually was hired to do what my passion was. So never give up on your dreams, and that's what I have to say.
My name is Sharon Elizabeth, and I used to be a general contractor in Los Angeles about 30 years ago. And so my sons were raised on construction sites, multifamily units. Huh? Well, no, they're at work. They're at work. They're working late, both of them, and which is a good thing. And so I haven't been in construction for years, but they work kind of sort of in construction now. But we had our own projects in Los Angeles, and now, because my father had a house fire, the opportunity, arose to kind of do his construction again. And so I'm general contractor, so to speak, of his, home renovation, complete gut. So it's a big job. So I'm here. Luckily I know Dan, and so I'm here to learn as much as I can about what Dan is into, and so I can share this with my sons.
Hello, my name is Sten Eric Andreasen, and I am currently finishing my associates for engineering, but also working residential construction right now, doing remodels, additions, anything and everything. Just came here because my stepdad actually works in the construction field, and so he said, hey, you don't have a plan for June? Come check this out. And he said, you might be able to find out something that you don't know. So I figured I would.
Tracy Freeman. I'm TNT Traffic Control. So I've been doing this for 11 years, started off as a flagger. Now I'm traffic control supervisor. I'm owning my own business. So I'm just here to see if I could get me a bid in, get some traffic control.
Hi, my name is Shannon Lair, and I am a union pile driver carpenter in about 12 years now. And one of my brothers posted on Facebook, so I was like, hey, what's going on down there? I'll go check it out. So that's just why I'm here.
My name is Jonathan Martin. I sell appliances, and I just want to look at other opportunities. So I decided to come on down and gain some knowledge.
My name is Omar Abdul-Alim. I'm an aircraft fuel system technician. I'm also a shop steward with the District 751. I also hold a flagger's card, but I just wanted to come get information because I've worked with a lot of youth at risk, and they're older now, so I just wanted to get information that maybe they can have some opportunities to be a part of this, to gain some knowledge and have some information for them. Thank you.
My name is Carlos Alvarez, and I'm a union member. And I came because I usually like to pass on information to sometimes people do not have access to for whatever reasons. and also be more informed as to what other opportunities are out there for carpenters. So I'm a carpenter myself. I'm a former teacher, and I don't know, just what other areas I can improve on, or like get opportunities to like more successful, pretty much in a nutshell.
I first met Brian, I believe it was in 2009, around that time. And Brian was one of the youngest executives sitting around this table. And I was very interested in what this guy knew and how I could learn from someone like himself who was able to rise to a very prestigious organization in our area, in our region, and is known probably nationally. And so I watched him and I observed him from afar, because the nature of his business, he doesn't have a lot of time. He's so busy. They have a lot of projects at any one time. They could have a dozen projects that they're working on at different stages. And when I learned about his background, I thought he would be the perfect person to talk to folks who don't know about construction from this perspective. So what we're doing is we're looking, typically when we're looking at construction, we're looking at it from this angle. Well, from his point, he has to look at it from the opposite angle, because he has to kind of reverse engineer the timeline, the budget, the policies, the regulations, and the neighborhood. That's a whole nother deal. And so he has really a job of a sorcerer. And where do you get that? You don't get that in school. And so with no further ado, Brian's going to tell us. Please give him a warm welcome.
That was an awesome intro. I've never been called a sorcerer before. That's pretty cool. I got to work on that. All right, well, it's a pleasure to be here. As Dan said, I want to look at the construction and the career paths from a different point of view, which is the development side, which is what I do. I do the development, which means I help owners of housing projects manage the budget, the schedule, close the financing, do the soup to nuts of starting a project from concept to completion. And we'll talk more about that. I'll show you some slides that help you walk through that. The other thing I'm going to focus on is affordable housing, because that's the development that I do. Strictly in the affordable housing industry, meaning that we develop mostly apartment buildings for folks who are lower income communities or have special needs and need that extra assistance to find stable and safe and long-term housing. So those are the lenses that I'm looking through to have this conversation with you. And what I want you to leave with is a little bit of an understanding of what affordable housing is, but mostly to understand that affordable housing is a real industry of opportunity. It's a place where you can do lots of different tasks, from construction to architecture to engineering to development, financing, property management, social services. There's a whole range of opportunities in the world that we call affordable housing. And what I consider to be part of my mission is to demonstrate that to people who especially don't have that awareness or that opportunity or that access, because we need more diversity within our industry. A lot of industries need that. So part of my job is reaching out to folks who don't know about affordable housing and who need that awareness and that invitation into our field. So I don't want this to be a stale presentation. I want you to ask me questions as I'm going. So if you don't understand something I'm saying or you have a follow-up question, I hope you'll raise your hand and just stop me, and we'll make this a discussion more than a presentation, okay? All right, so here's what we're going to cover today. What is affordable housing? What careers are involved? Who is Beacon? who is the company that I work for, and specifically how did I get to where I am in that company, because I want to show you different paths to these opportunities. And then finally, I want to talk about the broader range of careers that there are in the affordable housing industry and give you some salary information, because I know we're all thinking about salary as a part of these decisions, right? So I want to give you a sense of what the range is for some of these job positions that we'll be talking about. Beacon Development Group is a housing developer. Our clients are nonprofits and housing authorities that build buildings like this. In fact, my company was the development consultant that helped El Centro de la Raza, the sponsor of and owner of this building. We helped them create this building. We went from the concept, land acquisition, design, funding, financing, and construction for this building. It's a very exciting community. It's a great community-inspired housing project with childcare, with local retail, with this community center, with a commercial kitchen, business incubation program. It's got everything here, and it's got my office. My desk is right over our heads, right here. So I'm really proud to be working right here in this community. So let me talk about what affordable housing is. Affordable housing looks like this. It's beautiful, attractive, safe space for people, families, veterans, formerly homeless folks, whatever kind of populations are in need of affordable housing. This is what it looks like. And it's defined as housing where residents don't pay more than about 30% of their income for rent. Now, with housing expenses the way they are in our community, there are a lot of people paying more than 30% of their income for rent. When it really becomes a problem is when people are paying 50% or more of their income for rent, because obviously that doesn't leave you room for the other needs that you have in your life, for your family, for education, for savings, for retirement. So what groups like ours are trying to do is to create more housing that has rents that are low enough to be affordable to lower income communities. So that's what affordable housing is, whether it's rental, whether it's ownership, whether it's shelter or veterans or farm worker housing, working folks who are minimum wage or workforce folks who are in decent jobs but just not able to afford the typical market rate rents out there. So who provides affordable housing? Nonprofit and social service organizations like El Centro de la Raza, housing authorities, Seattle Housing Authority, Tacoma Housing Authority, King County Housing Authority, lots of housing authorities around the community that are doing this, public agencies, and the private market developers occasionally do affordable housing as well. So there's a whole range of types and providers. This is the building that we're in right now. It's called Plaza Roberto Maestas, after the founder of El Centro de la Raza. Let me show you some other affordable housing projects. This is called Pearl on Oyster Bay. It's in Bremerton. This is about 84 units of senior housing. As you can see, it's a very beautiful, attractive, newly constructed building serving low-income seniors in that community. Here's a farm worker project in Pasco, over in the Tri-Cities. So this is serving folks who are working in the agricultural industry, and these units are renting for between about $500 and $800 a month. Here's a fun project that we're working on right here in Seattle. This is down at the Pike Place Market. This overall project, I see a smile. Do you know about this project? It has a lot of piles in it, so maybe you drove some of those piles, I don't know. But this is a big project. Sellon is the general contractor on this. It's about a $70 million total project cost, and there's an affordable component, which is what we're working on, which is 40 units of senior housing for very low income folks. And this is just about finished, and it's going to have a grand opening on June 26th, and you should come out and check it out. It's going to be a great party. So back to Plaza Roberto Maestas. So as I said, this has housing, a child care center, has the public plaza out here, which is open to public events, has our offices right above us. It's got a community center where we're sitting right here, and it's got retail and restaurant. There's a coffee shop, a local community-owned coffee shop, the station on the far corner, credit union in the middle, and this interior corner spot's going to be a taco restaurant, and then obviously the link light rail right across the street. So it's a great combination of mixed uses that really reflects the vibrancy of this community. This is a timeline of how we got from beginning to end. I wanted to point out that beginning in February 2011 and even before, El Centro de la Raza and Beacon Development Group were having community meetings about this concept. It took us, 6 years to get from those early conversations to a completed and occupied building. This building finished in about 2016, about mid-year 2016. Took another 6 months to get leased up and occupied, and now this is fully occupied. The last space that we need to fill is that taco shop right there in the corner. Just for fun, I want to show you the project as it looked in 2013. You notice that it has some really cool balconies and some ironwork and some inset patios, and it was really beautiful and way too expensive. That represents at least about $7 million of project cost between that and this. You notice that, it's still a beautiful project, right? So I'm not taking anything away, but part of our challenge is to make the project concept fit the budget. So we had to remove some of the balconies, some of the fancy ironwork, and really simplify things so that we could fit within the budget. So that's part of our job. It takes a lot of time, takes a lot of work, but it's rewarding because we went from that previous concept to this concept, saved that $7 million, and got a project in the end. There's the final rendering, more or less how it looks today, and then the next is the photo of the actual plaza and the building. Everybody's seen a construction job site probably, but just imagine how many jobs are involved getting to this stage, right? All the funding and the design and the development work and the owner work and the community engagement work. And then you get to the construction trades, right? And there are all those jobs involved. And then when you complete the building, then you get into property management and social services and the care and feeding of the community that makes this a safe and stable and long-term place to live. So you got pre-construction, during construction, and post-construction type of job opportunities within the affordable housing world. I don't know if you noticed that artwork when you came in. There's some more artwork right here behind us, and there's artwork at each of the plaza points around the whole building. That's a part of what we did to make this a reflective project, a project that reflects the vibrancy of this diverse community. It represents all sorts of different cultures. An artist, a local artist, created the panels, and then the tile work was actually finished in New Mexico and shipped up here for installation. So it's a pretty cool part of the project, and that's my favorite art piece that's just outside of these doors right here. That's looking at the building from out here in the front. That's the child care play space. So in that building on the second floor in the northwest corner is a child care space. Every licensed child care has to have open space, and they wanted to create a safe place for the kids to play. So it's up on the second floor, so it's not accessible to anybody except the kids. The interior of the child care, I think they have about 60 kids that they provide services for on a daily basis in that building, and it's a bilingual program, so both English and Spanish. So there's some more slides. The kitchen, the community center, where we're sitting. Just to give you a sense of the process, again, I've outlined a few of the things that we had to deal with as we went through the development process. So first one, community input. Dealing with the issues of concern about gentrification, concern about the impact on the neighborhood, things like parking. This used to be a parking lot, but that wasn't a real good use of space. we had to convince people through parking studies that there was enough parking in the neighborhood so that loss of parking wouldn't be an impact to all these folks who live around here and like to park on the street. So that was a big concern, parking. And then the height of the building. This is one of the tallest buildings in this community, so a lot of folks were concerned about how high we were going, but after we told them what the project concept and vision was, they pretty much said, go as high as you want, because we need more affordable housing and we need more community-inspired services and retail. So that was an early part of the process. Thinking through who's going to be served here. A lot of these units are 2- and 3-bedroom units for families, because El Centro de la Raza serves a lot of families who don't have access to family-sized, affordable housing units. So they really wanted to serve that part of the market. This is an amazing statistic to me. There are 275 individuals who live in these apartments, and 110 of those are kids. So imagine that kind of impact. And when I finish, I want you to have that understanding of that's what affordable housing is doing. It's creating safe spaces for those 110 kids to grow up in a place that they're proud to call home. And it's a part of a community. And it's a place that launches them forward into their futures. Design challenges. We had a lot of conversations with the Design Review Board, the City of Seattle process, in terms of approving the design concept. Financing challenges. This building is made up of 4 separate condominiums that all have slightly different financing structures. So if you want to get into hairy numbers, this deal will do it for you. There were 13 total funding sources from city, state, philanthropy sources, tax credits, debt, 13 different sources that had to be tracked, closed, and assembled to cover the $45 million cost of this project. And then construction and lease up. In big picture concept, these are the different types of entities that touch the affordable housing process. Owners like El Centro de la Raza, developers like Beacon Development Group, property managers. There's a company called Quantum Management that manages this property. They provide the janitorial, the maintenance services, the leasing, and the budget management. The design team, the engineering team, all those funders that I talked about. Advocacy and policy folks who are making sure that affordable housing policies allow the type of funding that funds projects like this, and then construction, of course. And we're going to come back to these, and I'm going to break these down into some more specific professional career paths. But again, I wanted to frame who's doing this kind of work. And there's also a movement called source of income discrimination legislation that's trying to make sure landlords can't exclude based on source of income. So if you have a Section 8, it would be illegal for a landlord to say, oh, you're a Section 8 holder? Well, I don't want you to rent in my building. So both of those things are policy and advocacy type things. All right, so now I want to talk some more about who is Beacon, so you get a sense of what exactly we do and how I found my way into this work. So Beacon, as I said, is an affordable housing development consultant. We help sponsors and nonprofits and housing authorities across the state of Washington. We've been doing this for about 18 years. We have completed over 100 projects with 6,500 units, over $1 billion worth of real estate. Next slide shows the type of housing product that we do: family housing, historic, senior, urban, rural, all types of housing. My career path, how did I get to where I am? Just to show you one way to get here. So I was a history major at a liberal arts college. I had no idea where my career path was going to take me. Because when you're a history major, well, one, you don't know anything, but you certainly don't know what you're going to do to turn that education into a job. And so I say that to point out the fact that you may not know when you did schooling or when you did high school where your career was going to go, but you follow that path, you follow that passion, and you go where it leads you. Where it led me is I liked working in construction. I liked working for Habitat for Humanity. And so I decided, well, that's a great combination. Real estate, construction, but with a mission that's helping people. And so I then did a Master in Public Policy, a master's degree with a focus on affordable housing and community development. I went to the Bay Area, got my first job as a housing developer. Well, housing associate first, then a housing developer, then a senior housing developer, just walking up the chain. When I went to the Bay Area to look for my first professional position, it was a tough time to find a job. So I volunteered for a housing nonprofit. And that's a great way to get in the door. So I volunteered, and I was there for probably 3 months, and then I told my boss, because I was a volunteer, that I had a job interview and that I had to leave early. And he said, Brian, stay right there. And he went to talk with the executive director, and he came back and said, Brian, we don't want you to take that job interview. We want to hire you right now. How much do you want to make? My brain was just like, whoa, I should have gotten a job interview, like a fake job interview, a long time ago, and then I would have skipped all this volunteering stuff. But then I thought, well, hey, $30,000, that sounds like a good starting point. So he said, sure, we'll pay you $30,000. So that's where I started. And when I left that job 7 years later, I was at 70. So I had really advanced within the company, increasing responsibility and increasing salary. And so that's one of my messages to you, is that the housing industry has those opportunities to move up. So then when I wanted to move back, I grew up here in Washington State, so when it was time to move back here to Washington, I took a job with Bank of America, worked for a couple of years in finance. And then it was time for me to come back to development, and so I got the job with Beacon Development Group, and I've been at Beacon for almost 14 years. And I'll probably retire from Beacon because it's a great place to work. So that's one path. Now, I have another person that I work with closely in the housing industry. She has a job very much like mine, but she has a very different path. And so I want to talk about her path to a job that's pretty much like mine, but a completely different way of getting there. So she took a job with a bank, I think in the mailroom, after graduating from high school. And she worked in that bank, well, she worked for about 5 banks, because banks are always merging, right? And so she stayed in one place, but the banks kept changing around her. But she stayed in that bank and had progressive responsibilities for about 15 years, to the point where she was making loan decisions on real estate. So then a nonprofit recruited her and said, why don't you come work for us and be a developer? So she did that. She went and worked for a nonprofit developer. And then after that, she came to work for Beacon. So we kind of do the same job, but we got there from very different places. So that's a nice thing about a lot of these affordable housing jobs, is they're not a restricted path for how you get from point A to point B. So other development positions within our firm, to give you a sense of other entry points. We have both development personnel and construction management personnel. So on the development side, these are folks who are dealing with the money and the schedule and the overall process management. We have our entry position is a development associate, and I'll come back to salary ranges for these jobs. And then a project manager, we have senior project managers, and then we have a development director, and my current position is vice president of real estate. On the construction side, we have construction management associate as the entry point, construction manager, and senior construction managers. And those construction managers are helping oversee the design process and the actual construction process. All right, now we get to the salary information. So I've tried to break down the tasks by area of work, and I've done research to try to create a sense of the salary range. And the places where I got this information were, 1, interviews with other people in the field, 2, our own company's information, and then 3, the United Way does a survey that collects hundreds and hundreds of different salary scales for different job classes, and so I pulled from that. So this is not scientific and it's not exact, but it's trying to give you a range, a concept of where salaries can start from and where salaries can get to. Development associate, I mentioned that as an entry point in our work. That's about a $45,000 to $65,000 a year job. A project manager would be 65 to 75. A senior project manager would be 75 to 100. A construction associate position, 45 to 65, 80 to 100 for construction managers. Those are really tough positions to hold right now, because people like Hoffman, they're grabbing everybody they can get out there because there's so much demand. So that's pushed up that wage scale, which is good for the people who hold that job. There can be lots of different education backgrounds for people in those jobs, but people generally have a college degree, either a 2-year or a 4-year. It might be in architecture, finance, business, public policy like mine, a whole range of backgrounds. Okay, property management. So I mentioned there's a company called Quantum Management who provides the property management for this building. So there's a site manager. That would be someone who lives on site and kind of keeps their eyes on the residents and the physical state of the building. That might be a $33,000 to $43,000 a year. Janitorial, maintenance, $30,000 to $50,000. Property manager, so a property manager would be someone who's supervising the site manager and supervising the rest of the team. Might be $45,000 to $52,000. That property manager would probably be supervising maybe 3 or so different properties in a community, maybe a total of like 500 units of housing. A senior property manager would have maybe 5 or 6 projects and more staff and more units, and be up at 70 to 85. Leasing staff, the folks who interview people when they apply for the housing, might be $34,000 to $40,000, and service coordinator, so someone who's helping folks in the housing deal with whatever challenges they have, whether it's financial management, recovery services, education and child care, things like that. So property management, I want to impress upon you, is a great place to get into the affordable housing field, because it has lots of entry-level positions, but then again, you can see it has progressive responsibility opportunities and progressive pay opportunities. So I know a number of people, someone I worked with, she started out as a site manager at the age of 19 out of high school. She is now a regional property supervisor for a large property management company, and is probably at $100,000 and has a lot of responsibility in her job. So it's again a great place to start and to advance. So design and engineering, architectural jobs. You might have an intern, a drafter, architect, senior architect, building information management. Dan mentioned that as a growing trade. These are some great opportunities, especially the CAD specialist. Someone talked about being in computers and IT. So CAD is computer-aided design, and when an architect draws a building, it all gets converted these days into computer drawings. And so that computer-aided design person is the one who's manipulating the program to convert concept into drawings, and then those drawings are handed to the contractor, and the contractor builds off those drawings. So a very IT-focused part of the process there that probably didn't exist, 15, 20 years ago. Other design disciplines, civil engineer, soils engineer, structural, mechanical, electrical, similar job responsibilities to the architecture, so I didn't go into a scale for each one of those. But those take a little bit more specific training, and so tend to have a little bit higher pay scale. Do you have a question back here?
Boeing built the 777, they did all on computer. It was computer generated. They didn't do the mock-up for it. It's called CATIA that they used.
Yeah, good point. And what I'm referring to is in the building trades.
Okay.
It used to be that it was blueprints.
Yes.
And then it converted into computer-based design. But probably after people like Boeing were already using that system. Yes, ma'am. So I bet our Hoffman representative could answer that more, and so we'll bring him up and he'll do more of that. But basically, building information management is understanding all the different components. The way I think of it is understanding all the different components in a building. So you look up, you see lights, you see audio visual. Up above these panels, you see heating and ventilation. Within the walls, you don't see plumbing and electrical. So building information management is a computer-aided process by which you are modeling the building and understanding how those systems intersect. Hopefully they're not running into each other, because then the contractor's not going to be able to build it. So it's understanding the model of the building so that all those parts are understood and they're in the right place. Did I get that close? All right. One thing about being a developer is you don't have to know anything about anything. You just have to know a little bit about everything. So I fake it till I make it. Okay, funding. I was able to locate some good information about public funders. So the City of Seattle has the Office of Housing, which is providing loans to projects like this. King County has a similar department. Most major cities have public funding resources, and the state of Washington as well. These are job positions that exist at the Office of Housing: admin staff, compliance, asset management. Compliance means that, so this project has a loan of about, what is it, maybe $7 million of city funds have been loaned into this project. In exchange for that $7 million, the Office of Housing has certain expectations. We have to serve people at 50% of area median income and below, and we have to comply with all the maintenance and oversight regulations that are part of their funding. So compliance and asset management staff are the ones who are making sure that that occurs on an annual basis. So the property management and the owner are submitting reports, they're having inspections, and those are the staff people who are providing that oversight. There's planning and program staff, the lenders themselves, and then up to executive management and the Office of Housing Director. So you can see there's quite a range, from entry points of 40 to 50 up to executive management of 90 to 140. The next section there is, I forgot to label it, is private lenders. So this project here was financed by US Bank. So US Bank had many of those same positions within their structure. They're going to be similar positions and responsibilities, but probably higher pay grade. The great thing about working in the public sector, if some of you have been in there, is they have great benefits. So it's a bit of a trade-off. Lastly, policy and advocacy and services. So I talked about the services that might be in a building like this. This project is mostly targeting low-income but working families. So the services here are minimal. But we're working on a project in Everett right now that's going to serve 65 formerly homeless individuals. So you can imagine that's a very different service package. There we're going to have job training, we're going to have recovery services, we're going to have counseling, and so the social services staff are the ones delivering those programs. I wish this weren't the case, but it's probably the lowest paying part of the affordable housing spectrum. But again, the good news about it is it's a great entry point. It's an access point where you can get into the affordable housing industry. So case managers, shelter supervisors, counselors, program directors, again, a stair-step process for advancement. And lastly, there's the policy and advocacy. So going on around the whole industry are advocates and policy folks who are down at the legislature talking about funding and policies like the source of income discrimination and the felony housing process that you brought up, and making sure that there are funding programs in place to fund projects like this. So that's another angle on how to be working in affordable housing and supporting the industry.
Brian, briefly, can you tell us the education level on some of these positions that we see above us, in front of us here? Because these are non-technical, most of these positions. So can you kind of give us a little background of what you know of some of those roles?
Yeah, it ranges. Let me look at the case manager, shelter supervisor, support staff, and counselor positions. Those generally don't have high educational requirements, which makes them a good place to access the process, the industry. The people that I see that are most successful in those jobs have been educated by life as opposed to, school, if you know what I mean. I was talking to a guy recently. He had used to be homeless. He had trouble with the law. He got out of jail and decided he was going to get clean and turn his life around. And he is now a case manager, actually a case manager supervisor with Plymouth Housing, which does homeless housing downtown. Very stable, very successful, making a big difference in the world. And the reason that Plymouth hired him is because he had the exposure and the understanding to those troubles that he could identify with the folks who are moving into the housing community where he works. He wants to go back to school and get a Master of Social Work. So, and he now has the qualifications to do that because he has the work experience. And you'll see the senior family and individual counselor with the Master in Social Work title behind it, you jump up to almost double the salary range. So again, good entry point without a lot of background, but then the opportunity to leverage that into something more. Any other questions? I'm concluded with my presentation, so I'd love to answer any questions you have before I hand it back to Dan. Yes, ma'am.
I guess my question is, like the member services staff, program staff, would you need to start networking with that kind of the industry, the policy, the people like in Olympia, or whoever makes the policies and our advocates? You have to kind of get to know that circle of people that in order to start to kind of weave your way through.
Yeah, you definitely would. And so finding that entry point is really critical. Maybe you live in a neighborhood where folks are organizing around the issues of affordable housing. Or maybe your city has a commission or a task force that's addressing affordable housing. My first job I got because I volunteered somewhere. So that's the kind of thing you can look for, is those volunteer opportunities. Stick your toe in, figure out what's going on, and then try to make a difference, and people will see that. And then when you say, hey, I'm interested in a job in this field, you've got somewhere to start. Because if you just go knock on someone's door and say, I want a job as a legislative staff person, that's going to be tough. But if you say, I've been working for 2 years as a volunteer with my local community trying to advocate for affordable housing, that's going to get somebody's attention.
Thank you. Brian alluded to the actual delivery of the construction, and he made reference to one of the largest builders in this region. And I have just been blessed and fortunate to have had the opportunity of working with Hoffman Construction over about a half a dozen years now. They have been very willing to go up and beyond the call and duty to create opportunities, and resources for our communities. And I've had the pleasure of working with Andrew, I believe, from the very beginning. Andrew was my first project endeavor. And when I was introduced to Andrew, it was in an interview-like situation. They were pursuing a project, and they wanted to have someone like myself to be able to provide some input. Now, if I didn't do well, I probably wouldn't be standing here before you today. So fortunately, I passed. Thank you. Yes, thank you very much. When I met Andrew and I met Hoffman Construction, I realized that they had so many different dynamic personalities and so many very talented individuals. And they all had different backgrounds. However, the folks in his position consistently have a similar background. And I'm going to let him share his experience with Hoffman, as well as what it took for him to get to Hoffman.
Dan asked me to go over a couple of things. First, I was going to talk a little bit about Hoffman Construction, my role in it, how I got there, and then look through a project that we got coming up. Actually, hopefully next week we'll get started. So. Hoffman Construction is a large commercial and industrial builder in the Northwest primarily, though we do travel for the correct client. We do typically between $1 to $2 billion worth of construction in a year. We're about 400 salaried employees.
Repeat that one more time so folks know what you said, because sometimes when you say billion and million, it kind of...
Yeah, Hoffman does between $1 and $2 billion worth of revenue, of construction per year, depending on what's going on. There's about 400 salaried employees in the company, though many more trade people are involved, and it is an employee-owned company. So that's a little bit about Hoffman and what we do. My role in it is a project manager. So the project manager wears a lot of different hats. He kind of is a liaison between the subcontractor community and the ownership and the architects and the designers, and has to kind of work through all those groups and make sure the project moves forward and protects the company, the construction company's interests. A big part of it is, like Dan mentioned, chasing and securing work with new clients and bringing work into the company. A big part of my day is writing and reviewing and managing subcontracts and contracts with subcontractors, vendors, and suppliers. Managing a budget is a big part of it, especially for the owner's benefit, as well as our own. Protecting the owner and protecting the subcontractor. Inevitably, issues will come up, and there are disagreements. And as the person between the middle, as a person with a contract between both parties, it's my role to make sure I'm protecting the owner when I think they're right, and I protect the subcontractor when I think they're right. So wearing that hat, and it can be kind of tricky because they can actually both be right and they can actually both be wrong. So it takes a little walking a little bit of a tightrope. And then the biggest part is billing and getting paid. We got to do our work well, get money in, pay subcontractors, et cetera. I've been with Hoffman for almost 16 years. I've been a project manager for about 10 of those years. I went to college at Washington State University, and I graduated from there with a degree in construction management. Construction management is a kind of a hybrid of engineering, architecture, and business, and it's specifically focused on construction management, obviously. I was lucky enough to get hired and start working with Hoffman as a project engineer. It's kind of our lowest level when we start. Most people start as a project engineer, and that's starting at the bottom. You're doing a lot of the things that nobody else wants to do. You're working a lot of Saturdays, you're working a lot of nights, and you just keep working up, and eventually you're not the lowest guy on the ladder anymore. Somebody else gets to work that Saturday for you, which is nice. In the construction career, you're going to see some opportunities, and as you look for these, as you make sure you recognize them when they come and take advantage of them. So always try to do more, try to learn more, try to take that role that maybe you aren't qualified for, but maybe you can do it and take that step. That was helpful in a few cases with me. So that's kind of Hoffman. That's kind of a project manager role. That's kind of my path to get here. This is a project we've got starting here any minute. I've got to execute a contract with Washington State Ferries. This is the Coleman Dock Multimodal Terminal Project. This is a $350 million replacement and renewal project. This is right down on the waterfront. This is the busiest ferry terminal in Washington State's system. A little bit about the project. This is Coleman Dock today. You see Alaskan Way in the waterfront. This is the terminal building. This ferry terminal serves two of its busiest routes, Bainbridge Island being the #1 busiest, Bremerton, and then King County also operates a passenger-only ferry off the south side to Vashon and West Seattle. In 2015, 9.5 million people used Coleman Dock, so that's going to be a lot of foot traffic through our project site. There's a lot of safety concerns that we have. This is the layout of the trestle. The trestle is basically the car deck where the foundation of the project, the piles are below it, the trestle is on top of it. The purple area is all wooden trestle, timber trestle, some of it rotting creosote piles. That's the stuff we're going to be removing and replacing with steel piles and concrete trestle panels. This is the layout of the new terminal. Once we're done, we're going to remove the existing terminal building. If you remember that previously, we're going to reorientate it in a north-south access, a new passenger-only facility on the south side, an entry building along Alaskan Way, and a connector between all three structures above the trestle, so pedestrian can move to those buildings safely without being hit by cars. This is a perspective looking west from downtown of how the final project would look. Viaduct's gone, so this is quite a bit in the future. This is about a 5-year project. Key elements: a new terminal building, new staff building, maintain and replace all the utilities. That's a big part of it. The biggest challenge is that Ferries wants to maintain operations during the entire project, so they want to make sure that both boats are going in and out seamlessly. People are moving to and from their cars or places of work. It's truly a multimodal terminal. There's bicycles, there's motorcycles, there's cars, there's trucks, there's buses, there's concrete trucks, there's pedestrians, there's everybody. So there's a lot of people moving, a lot of moving parts, and that's going to make one of the real challenges of this project. Washington State Ferries is the owner. The MAC estimate is about $220 million. It's got some federal money in it, which makes sure they're by American requirements. We are starting next week, hopefully, and we'll be done a little bit sooner than that. We've been working on that. Be done sometime in 2022 in the summertime.
You guys already do your bids? You had your sub bids in?
Yes and no.
Traffic control already?
No. Yes and no. I mean, some of it's been out, some of it's not, but come talk to me. I would like to know more if you've got some bids to deliver. We have a 12% DBE goal. We've been doing outreach for about 2 years, and we've done some bidding, and there's still plenty of subcontracting opportunities available. A lot of these things are still out to bid, so these are mostly mechanical, electrical items. If anybody does that kind of work in here, let me know. We can get you in touch with our subcontractors, Valley Electric and Holmberg Mechanical. Holmberg Company. Here's some other items that we'll be doing some of the services, part of our negotiated support service contract work, hoisting, traffic control, cleaning, fencing, sanitation, et cetera. A lot of job site service type stuff, signage. This is kind of what construction folks might look for in a wage. I think Brian probably hit on these more than I can, but average wage maybe $75K, but depending on where you are in this list, you're going to be either a lot higher or maybe somewhat lower. The project executive is going to make a lot more than that in our company. I know that. You know, an estimator, probably right around there. A chief estimator would be substantially more. Just it kind of depends on where you are in this matrix and how good you are at that job and how long you've been doing that job to depend. But if you're a project engineer starting out, you're probably going to be in the 60 range, 50 to 70 range is my guess, and then anywhere northwards of that. So those are some ranges of salaries in our company and probably in the industry in general. And the trades folks, the craftspeople that are out there, it's a tougher thing to pin down because if you're working all the time, you're going to make more, and if you're working overtime, you're going to make more. And if you're between work, you're going to make less. But general foremen and foremen, guys and gals that really hustle and do a really good job, will make well over 100 in a year. Same with the journeyman, frankly, if they're a good worker and journey person, I guess we should say, if they can, you know, stay working, work overtime, can do really well. Apprentices are great to have because there's apprenticeship goals in all these projects, so we always need them. And it backfills the workforce for the future generations for future projects.
On Hoffman, you just go to the website and fill out the online application.
What are you looking for? Yeah, it depends on what you're...
Well, I'm not, but I know a couple of people that are.
Okay. There's an online application portal for resumes and things like that. Yeah, we have to actually do that now by law. So people in my position kind of have the same story. A lot of folks, it's true, have gone to college and done that, but that's not necessarily the case, and you don't need a college degree to be successful. A good colleague of mine, a good friend, his name is Tim Kramer, is a perfect example of this. Maybe 12 years ago, he was a carpenter for us in New Mexico when we were doing some chip manufacturing plants, large projects, but he was a carpenter. He did well. He hung on with us and you know, found his way back here to the Northwest. Him and his wife moved back here, but he stayed in the trades. Eventually he, on his own, went back to UW and got his certificate, a 2-year certificate, I believe it is. But he kept working, and then he got hired on as a foreman and a superintendent. And he's worked his way up, and he and I have done a couple of jobs together, not as a superintendent, and I was a project manager, but he was just recently promoted in the last year or two to president of one of our subsidiary companies, of our concrete construction company. So that's a guy that's literally gone from bags on in the field to the guy that's signing all the checks and is the president. So that kind of success story is possible. You don't have to have a college degree to do well in this industry or in this company. So just work hard. Estimating is always something that people need, and a good estimator is not always something people want to do because it's repetitive. Thank you. That was the word I was looking for. Project engineers are usually where folks come in and learn how to start. That's usually where we're looking for to get in. Is it on demand?
In the first part of our presentation, we covered a lot of the stuff that happens before the work is actually constructed or delivered. And now I wanted to kind of show you some of the wages that are out there right now for some various positions. So if you look at the top, and Sharon will have some interest in this, this is a commercial prevailing wage. So one thing that was mentioned to you earlier by Brian is he works in mixed-use environments sometimes. Like we're sitting in a mixed-use building. Up above is housing and office. Down below is retail. And so those two separate uses create opportunities. However, when you have a project, you want to make sure you're looking at the proper rate. And so what Ryan has showed you right here is this is actually Washington State's prevailing wage. And at the very top, you can see the abatement worker at $45.25. You can see a Boilermaker. Look how much they're making. How many of you are involved in the mechanical profession? Raise your hand. Raise it. Oh, yeah, it looks like you're going to get paid, right, brother? And so if you keep on going, look at the carpenters. I think we have a carpenter here, a couple carpenters here. Keep on going down, my friend. And so you can see, look at the cement masons. Any of you do some waterworks? Right now, as you heard, Andrew was talking about that $250 million project. Well, that $250 million project, next one, you're buying the next meal. It's about a third of that project is marine, meaning work on the water. And so those of you that, you know, are interested in doing work, but maybe not necessarily being in the typical arena, those are folks that are making good money diving. And you can see, look at that money they're making. Go ahead and hit the arrow to the right, Ryan. No, not that one. The other to the right. Do you see the arrow on this? Keep going down. You see the arrow to the right? There you go. Here's some others. Look at the electricians. Look at what they're making. You guys see that okay? Go ahead, keep on scrolling down. Now, you notice it says Snohomish. So that means if those projects, if you're coming from Snohomish, or if that project's going to be in Snohomish, you can kind of see different counties, you have different rates, and there's multiple counties, obviously, in Washington State. Anyway, so this kind of gives you an idea of the wage that you can make in the field. We talked about the processes that go into making a project come to fruition. So, like this building right here was a parking lot. And so what did it take to convert the parking lot to what we have before us? Well, a lot of us know that they probably cleared the asphalt, and they probably maybe did some environmental work to make sure there wasn't anything under there that could disrupt the structure, right? They also had some professional services folks stake in surveys, making sure that they put this building where it's supposed to be, because once you got it erected, oh no, we got to move it over 2 feet. Can't do that, right? Those are professional services. Someone had to find out what permits needed to be acquired. Someone needed to figure out if there was any ecological conditions that could impact the project. Was there some native bones in the ground? Was there a dinosaur? Lord forbid. Was there a spotted owl? Probably not likely here, but you never know. And so these are conditions that could impact an actual project. And guess what? When your project gets held up, guess who's the most important person on the job? The person who can solve that problem. The person who can reach out to the natives and communicate. The person who can reach out to the environmental folks. The folks that can reach out to the city and talk to the inspectors. And so you need to have skills to do that, but did I mention an education in any of that? No. Okay. So again, the objective today was to identify those non-traditional opportunities around construction that you may not have ordinarily seen. Did we do that today? Yeah. Did we do that today? Yeah. All right, all right, all right. That's what I need to make sure. Okay, so what I like to do whenever we have one of these sessions is I like to kind of do a close up, next steps, conclusion, make sure we're all on the same page. So, number one, best practices to become a preferred resource. Y'all were it today. It wasn't easy to get here. Parking may have not been that easy. I know traffic was a pain. And so that's really important. And you're all still here. And so that tells me that you're reliable people. And so that's the first step. The second step is to make good decisions. Now, that doesn't mean that every decision you make is good, because I made 3 bad decisions on my way here. So it happens. But you make that effort of trying to make good decisions. Rational decisions, giving some thought to what the outcome could be if you take that left. Leaders sometimes take left, so don't, but make sure it's a good decision. Make sure it's a good left. Opinions with facts, because sometimes we get people in our lives that have opinions. You can't do this. You heard some people here talked about their careers and maybe being doubted. Well, if you're hearing from folks and they're just giving you their opinions and they don't have the facts, then they're just noise. So keep them in your rearview mirror, because we're all about positive and growth. And we try to leverage one another to help grow one another. And so we have a great family within the Institute. When you make a mistake, admit to them. Ryan has the toughest job in here. He has to deal with me every day. And y'all know I don't turn it off. So he'll hear from me at 2 in the morning, and guess what? Again at 7. Because y'all know you sleep when you're dead when you're in my world. And so when there's a mistake made on either side, it's important to be able to acknowledge it and to be able to grow from it, so you're not making that same mistake again. Doesn't matter what you're involved in. Commit to being a lifelong learner. Now, I've heard people say that before, and I didn't use it myself. Now I've adopted it in my language, because y'all, I'm still green. I learn something every day, every day. And so the cameras are here today because my memory is starting to fade as I'm getting older. And so these cameras are here to document, the diamonds that are being dropped here, right? And hopefully someday I'll be able to watch it and say, oh yeah, there was a diamond, I forgot about that one. And so the goal is to continue to build this castle that y'all are a part of. And accountability is important. We got to make sure that we're accountable no matter what. Be accountable, because that's what makes a difference. And from someone who's working for someone and someone who's telling that someone what to do. And so that's where I'd like to see my people. So we're going to apply lessons learned and best practices shared today. Identify someone in your life who possesses a strength that you don't possess. Now, you may be like me and think you're a bad mother lover. Shut your mouth. But even I have people in my life that I can learn from and grow from. I learn from you every time I have one of these sessions. That's a smart person. A smart person has smarter people around them. Acquire some appropriate technology to excel in your career. Now, you see the kind of technology that we're using. A lot of you are using it yourselves. A lot of you have these little cool little smartphones. We used to just talk to people through these things. Now we do everything but talk to people on these things, right? And so I can run my business or my other business or my son's business or my nonprofit, all with that cool little tool that you saw me slide in my shirt. How many people can do that? And so if I can do it, say it again. That's right. That's exactly right. And so I want you to know that no matter what you do, there are tools out here that can make you better and can help you grow. You just got to make sure you connect with the right folks. Sometimes they're more willing to share than others. And you heard Brian mention volunteer. When you volunteer, man, it's amazing. Look, I volunteered today and y'all are here. You see what happens? And somehow I think there's going to be some positive energy shared when you leave here. And again, you give, you receive, right? And I give not expecting to receive because I know he's going to take care of me. You sell? And so it comes back. You're going to use the technology, but you're going to use the technology to build this knowledge base. And so part of that knowledge base is being able to anticipate where the opportunities are. Now, I just told you that one of my clients who just talked to you today has a $250 million project on their plate. What if I told you that I was helping them manage their inclusion plan, meaning diversity, small business, for over $500 million worth of projects? So where are you going to be? You know? And so these projects are happening every day. We're doing work with other institutes, other organizations. Washington State has over $100 billion of projects going through our sector over the next 20 years. You got Washington State Department of Transportation has $32 billion. You got $16 million that you paid for yourself in Connecting Washington. You got another $8 million that was already in the state budget, and you got $8 million that's coming from the feds. So that's just the Washington State Department of Transportation. What about Sound Transit down the street? They got $54 billion with a B. Okay, so you can hear about these projects in the paper, or you can plant yourself and insert yourself in the supply chain. And that's what we're trying to do. So the next steps, we want you to review these class materials. I'm going to email you. If I forget to email you, you email me, because you all know my email address now. When this video is completed, we're going to edit it. These lovely ladies are going to edit this footage for us. They're going to drop it on YouTube, and you're going to see it on EIW Contractor University, like another 1,000 or so minutes that we already have on YouTube. That's there again for free for all of you. Share the materials that you get with your friends, staff, associates, your family. Why? Well, number one, if we're trying to lift you, you better lift your neighbor, number one. Number two, if you can lift your neighbor can hold you accountable if you have a bad day. And we all need peers. We all need people that can relate to the challenges that we're dealing with. And so it doesn't matter whether you're the highest paid or the lowest paid, we can all do this. We can all practice this. Review your internal systems. And I use that term in a real broad basis. Systems, what does that mean, a system? System could be, when you just met this young brother, what's the next step? Are you going to send him an email? Are you going to make a phone call? Are you going to make sure that he knows that you care about the next interaction? Are you going to jump on Facebook and see if he has a presence there? Are you going to see if his presence is one that you want to be associated with? Are you going to take a look at his LinkedIn page? Y'all have a LinkedIn page? Raise your hand if you have a LinkedIn page. You don't have a LinkedIn page? That's something that EIW will need to help you with. It basically is your resume right there in the cloud for everybody to look at. Hey, Joe, you want a job? Sure. Well, you got LinkedIn? Yeah. Okay, well, let me take a look. Joe, we're going to have to talk. You want to be able to use your peers and use the technologies that you have out here, okay? So I gave you a test on what I'm going to do before we meet. Understand your systems, your standards, and the standards of those people you're trying to impress. You know what I mean by that? Okay, so one thing that I do in my professional business life, when I'm not volunteering, my behind off, is I have a for-profit business that works with large corporations, one like Hoffman. Well, in order for me to be of value to them, I have to know their systems. I have to know how they communicate with each other. I have to know how they communicate with their customer. I have to know how to communicate with their employees and their subs. And so I'm a sponge. Why? Because I know the more valuable, the more familiar I can get with their systems, the more I can do this. The more I can give back. So I'm always building my knowledge base, and people are always wondering, why you got so much paper, Dan? Or why you're reading all this and you're reading all that? Well, I'm not reading because I like to read. This brother didn't like to read. But I'm reading because I know where the greenbacks are. They showed me where the greenbacks are. And so now I'm chasing them. And I'm trying to help you chase them as well. Make sure you communicate with one or multiple subject matter experts. Someone that has a technical or professional expertise that you envy. If someone talks a way that you are impressed by and you'd like to talk like them, hang out with them, emulate them. If they write real well and you'd like to write with them, find out, who are they reading? Where's this coming from? And because sometimes they're influenced by someone, and you can just, why reinvent the wheel? You read the same book he read, you can be as smart as he is, or she is. And so, don't be intimidated by others. And like Brian, fake it till you make it. Don't you know I did? I was 19 years old. I was an athlete to University of Washington. I liked football, but I also liked track and field. Football coach didn't like me playing track and field. So you know what happened to my scholarship. You learn, you take some bumps, right? Well, it just so happened to be while I was in college, there was a brother who was a general contractor, and he took a chance on me. I was 19, remember? This man was an award-winning general contractor, African-American contractor by the name of Leonard Simpson. I was 19. My daddy was gone when I was 2. Didn't have any male role models in my life like many of you may. He came in my life and he gave me an opportunity. He gave me an opportunity to work in his office, but I wanted to do construction. But he gave me an opportunity to work in his office. And I didn't realize how valuable that was until, I can really look at it today and see it, how 2020, when you go past. But he had a problem with his computer. Where are you at? There you are. He had a problem with his computer, and back then he was using a Macintosh, and he had a little database program. You ever heard that term database used before? Just basically a method of communicating information, storing it. Sometimes it's friends, sometimes it's prospects, whatever your database is. Well, he used a database called FileMaker Pro, and it was a real simple database that allowed you to enter information about your customers so you could print letters and do invoices. And so here I was, this 19-year-old kid with a database, not knowing how valuable that database would be to me today. So what I did was I helped grow his company using his technology that he already had. And so I started doing administration. And so you know I was a hustler even in college. I found out that I was eligible for something called work study. So I used the work study programs. I said, hey boss, you know, I'm going to college. I need to pay for college, you know, but I know the government will help reimburse you. What if you pay me $12 an hour? $12 an hour? Well, look, if you look here, you'd only have to pay me $4. They'll pay me $8. Shoot, where I sign? And so that was my first experience around entrepreneurship, and I used it in a job. And so I was the only one of my peers that was making $12 an hour, and so you know I graduated from college in 1995. So I was doing all right. And so when I graduated in 1995, I was working 65 hours a week. So you can do the math. And so I decided in college, at that point, that I wanted to become a businessman. And I didn't have a vision, I didn't have a business plan. I did actually have a degree that I was gonna get in a few months. Wasn't sure though, because it was, whew, you're in college, you know how it is. And I did 2 sports, so it was really competitive. But I started my business, and I took him on as my first client. And you know I've been in business ever since. I've been in business since 1995. And so going backwards at 19 years old, great opportunity. Sometimes you don't know. Sometimes you don't know. And so if you have an open mind and a good attitude, you may be able to embrace that opportunity like I did. And so what I did is I learned construction, and I learned it from a paper perspective. I was like a paper contractor. And so when I started my business, I became a paper contractor. The challenge is, if you're a paper contractor, that means you probably don't want to get dirty, right? And so being a general contractor and not getting dirty means that you better have a whole lot of experience on that paper side so you don't get dirty. And so what I realized was I was paying, you saw those wages? I saw how much I was paying my superintendent. I saw how much I was paying my foreman. I was giving all the money away. So I realized that it made sense for me to learn both sides. So not only do I know how to build it on paper, I can strap on the belt and I can build it with my hands. And so being able to go both ways creates a huge value. And so for the last decade, but I have not made under 6 figures for the last decade, okay? Now, the area that I'm practicing in is around inclusion, maximizing inclusion on projects. And I set records because I'm creative. You gotta be when you don't have anything, right? I lift up every box, every stone. But in my profession, I'm able to grow my business, so anyone can do it. I'm so happy you're here today. That's all I have for you. If there's any questions, I'll be sure happy to answer them. Other than that, it was my sincere pleasure to have each and every one of you today.